The next resolution, 023-10, is a resolution on direction of a levy issue. The resolution, as you have it, is the amount of the levy has been left blank. So what I'd like to do is ask Dave Thompson from the Auditor of State to talk to us a little bit. We asked them to sit down and take a look at the 5-year forecast, and with the reductions in the possibly could have been here that we just approved, and determine what's necessary to have a positive balance at the end of the 5-year period. So, Dave, would you mind helping us out with that first?
Good evening, everyone. For commission members, you do should have a handout in front of you, and for the audience, we're hopefully getting this thing right up here a little bit. So please bear with me with that. Okay, as an intro, what I've been asked to do is to give a presentation on different millage rates and the impact of those millage rates on the finances of the district. And first of all, I really appreciate the help that I got from the Treasurer's Office. Both Sean and Terry were totally cooperative and couldn't have done it without me. The numbers that are in the 5-year forecast that you have in front of you are only as good as the assumptions that they're built on, and I can't emphasize that enough. Us as accountants get blamed a lot for figures that are way out there or something that we like to sit around and dream up figures. But the numbers that are in this forecast that are going to support some of the levy information I'm going to give you are only as good as the written assumptions that they were based on. And for the information that I'll be presenting this evening, the assumptions that you should keep in mind are the following. First of all, there is built into this forecast period of 2011 through 2015, there is cuts for $1.2 million for the cuts that will take effect beginning fiscal year 2012, and those are to meet operating standards. Those are built into this forecast. The second thing is that no cuts would be restored within this window, and that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. I'm just saying for presentation purposes, there have been no cuts restored in this particular forecast period. The next thing you should keep in mind is that we have built in a 20% cut in foundation for the year 2012. So if you take a look at the 2011 figure and you go to 2012, there is a 20% cut that has been built in. Now, whether or not that 20% cut is going to come to fruition, we don't know. As we're seeing it here today, it may be less, it may be more. There's just, and you've heard different people tell you that this evening. But the numbers that you got in front of you are based upon a 20% cut in fiscal 2012. And the other thing that occurred is built into this forecast period is there was a COPS note that became due in fiscal 2011. And the general fund had responsibility for $1,950,000, and you'll see that down under principal other in the year 2011. So that $1,950,000 for principal other relates to certificates of participation that had to get paid in fiscal year 11. Other assumptions that you should be aware of that the numbers are built on. First of all, as far as property tax, property taxes have been estimated. The other thing too I wanted to point out, the last time our office stood in front of you, we went over a 1-year forecast with you, and that forecast was examined. That means we followed AICPA standards and we looked at source documents and we examined that forecast. This information that's up here on the board tonight has not been examined. Okay? It's been looked at for reasonableness, and we worked together with the Treasurer's Office to make sure that numbers that were presented to you were reasonable and that you had a basis for decision making, but the information hasn't been examined according to AICPA standards. Okay, general property taxes, a slight increase has been built in, I think 1% a year. And again, there's, we're crystal balling this thing, and based upon, that 1% increase is based upon recent history, not, history in the past, like 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. It's more recent history, and it tried to be conservative with that number. The other major revenue source, of course, is foundation, and as we said, we cut that number 20% in 2012, and then for the rest of the period, there was, I think, we decreased a little bit in 12, we went down 2.5%, and then there were 1% increases in 14 and 15. I'm sorry, 2013 was at 2.5. On the expenditure side, under personal services, the numbers that are in there are at the staffing levels, less the reductions that we just talked about for the 1.2. Those have been included, those reductions. They're also built into the personal services numbers are no base increases and only step increases. There are step increases included, but there are no base increases included in those numbers. And as far as employee benefits is concerned, the numbers are based upon increases primarily in health insurance, and those increases are reasonable based upon past history. So again, we didn't turn over every source document and examine, but we believe the numbers that we're presenting to you right now are reasonable numbers based upon the best information that's available to us. Okay, this first one that you have in front of you is if the district put a 12.95 mil levy on the ballot, that would result in, the bottom line to that would be, moving down there. Okay, there would be, at the end of 2011, the positive balance would be $73,085. Is everybody with me? It's right there. We're talking, for those of you in the audience, we're talking about this road right here. Okay, in 2012, that fund balance says 0, but to get to there, you have to go back up. And you go back up to the borrowing line, and in 2012, to make it 0, you'd have to borrow $4,636,000. To make it 0 in 2013, you'd have to borrow $1,206,000. In 14, you'd have to borrow $826,000, and in 15, you'd have to borrow $511,000. So right now, if you put a 12.95 mil levy on the ballot, you would never come out of a deficit during this 5-year forecast period. Okay, let's move on to, is there questions on that before I move on to?
That includes the reductions that we just resolved.
It absolutely includes the $1.2 million in reductions. It absolutely does.
Dave, how about, I mean, I know these things look at 12 months as a whole, but if you look at, currently we're borrowing $5.71 million. We're set to start repaying that.
Yeah, those are being paid back here.
I guess my question is this: at any given point in time, it looks like it would mainly be of importance in that 11 and 12 time period. What's our maximum outstanding on that state loan? It's got to be close to, I guess it'd be close to $7 million when it at its max. We'd start paying it back on July 1 we start paying back on July 1, 2011. Is that right, Sean? August, okay.
Okay, the paybacks for each year are built in right here, Mark, if I'm answering your question. The paybacks for 12, you have to pay back 2.5. The paybacks for 13 would be the 2.5 plus the 2.3. The paybacks for 14 would be the 2.3 plus the 603,000, and the paybacks for 15 would be 603 and 413. That's what the various paybacks would be, and this is assuming that the levy passes with the 12.95 mils.
Right. I guess, Dave, I guess my point is that under this scenario, and I guess it doesn't matter because it's not enough anyways, you could be dangerously close at any given point in time to your maximum borrowing capacity from the state anyways.
The maximum you would have in this scenario is $4.8 million. I mean, I'm sorry, the payback would be 4.8. The maximum borrowing you would have would be in any 1 year is in 11, and that's $5,071,000. The net. Okay, in the state, I see what you're saying to me. It's $7.7 million, and it would be, as far as the payback is concerned, the 1 year that would be the highest is 4.8, and in that year, you're still going to get 7.5, Mark. Is that what you're asking me?
Well, sort of. I see up there what we've got is an assumption. I guess what I'm saying is currently we owe $5 million. We haven't started to pay it.
No.
We're going to start drawing another sum of money at some point, probably before we start making one of our 24 payments on what was already borrowed. So I guess my point is that number one, 12.95 is not enough because the balance at the end of year 5 is not positive, as you mentioned earlier. But even further, this scenario might not be feasible because you might max out against your borrowing capacity in that short-term period anyway. It's a possibility.
I guess it's a possibility, but the thing to point out in this scenario, and I think the thing for the public to understand is that for this 5-year period, you would never come out of a deficit balance, and I think that's, you know, the primary message that we're trying to send with the 12.95 example. Okay, I'd like to move on to 13.95. With 13.595, the assumptions are the same that I gave you before, except for the millage is increased to 13.95. And if you go on down, well, just stay there. That's fine, I'm sorry. With this one, the borrowing that would take place would need the $5 million, of course, in 2011. You would need $4.2 million in 2012. And in 2013, you would need $242,000. And if you go on down, as far as fund balances are concerned, 2011 would be $73,000. You would be in deficit situations where you would borrow to get to zero in 12 and 13, but you would actually start coming out in 14. You would have a positive $620,000, and in 15 you would have a positive $1.7 million. That's under a scenario of 13.95. Questions on the FP before I move on to 14.95? Okay. Under 14.95, again, the borrowing with 14.95, you have to borrow the $5 million in 2011. You would borrow $3.8 million in 12, and there would have to be no more borrowing as far as 13, 14, and 15 is concerned. Move on down to fund balances. If the millage was 14.95, you would be $73,011. You would have a deficit in 12, and then you would start to have positive balances in 13, which would be $721. It would move up to $2.4 million in 14 and $4.4 million in 15. That's at a flat millage of 14.95 for the 5-year period. So the recovery in this particular example would be taking place in year 3. In the year 2013, you would actually move to a positive balance. In all these examples that I've given you, the millage would remain the same for all 5 years. It's 12.95 for each year. There's no increments built into any of this. It would be 12.95 flat, 13.95, and 14.95. Any other questions for me, please?
Any questions for Dave? Well, before we I would like to move to the adopt resolution 23-10 using the rate of 13.95. Read the resolution, please. And then we'll discuss it.
Whereas the Little Miami Local School District was declared to be in a state of emergency June 13, 2010, and whereas the Financial Planning and Supervision Commission for the Little Miami Local School District was created pursuant to Ohio Vice Code 33-1605 to ensure the fiscal integrity of the Little Miami Local School District, and whereas ORC 33-1608 requires the Commission to consider a tax levy upon the Auditor of State's annual certification of a deficit and/or their recommendation for financial recovery. And whereas after review of the various 5-year forecast documents detailing revenue and expenditure requirements as provided by the Auditor of State, and since time is of the essence, now therefore be it resolved that the Commission hereby directs the Board of Education of the Little Miami Local School District to proceed with the placement of a 5-year emergency operating levy in the amount of 13.95 mils of property valuation for the May 3rd, 2011 primary election. And I think it's supposed to be further be resolved that the Commission directs the Board to comply with the statutory election rules and deadlines by making certain all required documents pertaining to the levy request are submitted properly by the established deadlines, and be it resolved that the Commission requires the District Treasurer forward a certified copy of the Board resolution approving the request to the Commission by January 20th, 2011, and be it resolved that the Commission directs the Board to take all necessary steps to ensure said levy is properly submitted to the Warren County Board of Elections by February 2nd, 2011, and be it further resolved that the Commission authorizes the Commission Secretary to submit a copy of this resolution to the Warren County Board of Elections by February 2nd, 2011.
That is the motion. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Mr. Hurst, discussion. My reason for making the motion at 13.95, it doesn't make any sense to put it on for money that won't get them out of emergency. This would be a career job, and that's not what we're after. I guess I understand wanting to put back programs. I also think that it's time to stabilize the finances of the district. And by doing so, it doesn't mean bringing back a lot of programs that were got into this condition to begin with. Please, this is our meeting. I want to be able to get them out of financial emergency, get them on their feet. The 13.95, they could possibly be out of emergency in 3 years or less. I think, is that my close on that, Dave?
Under 13.95, the deficit,
Because in 2014, they could be released. At which point, the Board of Education, administration, community want to add more to the pot, to increase or to add to the program, they may do it then. But we need to provide, the district needs to provide under the operating standards, at least the operating standards in State of Ohio, and that's what they're doing. That's why I proposed the 13.95. So, room for discussion.
I guess no one's offered any other proposal for cuts to save any other money. We've heard how the people that are here don't want certain programs to be cut, but time after time, at least 51% of those who go out to the ballots and vote are saying it's obviously not a priority for them because they're voting no. There could be a wide variety of reasons why they do that. But also, if unless other reductions in expenditures are put forth, you have, what alternative is there? It has to balance through. I think this is a high number. It's going to be hard, but again, it's not one of these incremental numbers where, devil's in the details, it increases as time goes on. Is there time, and I know that the filing date of the Board of Elections is February 2nd, to get on the May 11th ballot.
I think there's what, January 28th, there's another, but that's, I want to have our next meeting, on the reason we put the January 20th date in there, that's when I want to have our next meeting to make certain that everything is done properly, and if for some reason it's not, then we still have time to react. Comments?
You know, I'm inclined to agree. I mean, we need to, Cole, I'm not sure if what you're getting at is try to get a feel for what's a reasonable. I mean, aside, obviously, the numbers work, and 13.95 works with the numbers. You know, in a more perfect world, there might be a real systematic and rational way to calculate what is more likely than not to pass and build from that. I'm not sure, I don't want to read it between the lines, but I'm not sure if that's what you're getting at or not, but.
Well, I mean, there was a comment earlier, and I think it's right. I mean, what's happened repeatedly is, and I can't recall that the gentleman made the comment, but I think it was a fantastic example. He went to the employer and said, "Can I have a quarter raise?" They said, "No." I said, "How about 50 cents?" And they keep asking for more. I think it was too much for reaching to try to, read people ring each time, and clearly the voters were saying, we're not going to support that. And the reason they keep asking for more is to hold the people deeper with each failure. I just...
Well, and also what we've done here is we asked them to work at state operating standards. And if they make any more reductions to lower that millage rate, then they're not going to be operating with the operating standards. They're going to be in violation of the law. So, you brought them to here, and now we've got to somehow or other get the money up to there so the two can meet and they can operate. Any more discussion? Hearing none, by roll call.
Mr. Beeler?
Yes.
Mrs. Castleman? Yes. Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Wetzel?
Yes. There's 4-0. Commission members' comments. I understand the passion everybody has. I've been in the business for 25 years before I took this role on. I think Roger's said it right. There's nothing in law that says do what's good for kids. Whoever said, I run a business, I didn't mean to make a flippant statement back to you about it. I wish we could run schools like a business, but we run it according to the Ohio Revised Code because that's what dictates what we do. And the law is pretty explicit when it says you can't operate at a deficit. You can't go up to the copy room and run off money. You just can't. We're not the federal government. We can't do that. You've got to operate within that budget, and in order to do so, sometimes you just got, you have to do what you have to do, and just hope that things get better in the future. So.
Just a comment that I would have. I think what I heard Mr. Bennett saying when we were asking about his recommendations and reduction in force, I think, and I'd like him to correct me right away if I haven't heard this right, but I think what I heard you saying is as you work through this process of making these reductions pursuant to the resolution, you're going to have to find out, how do you provide the core requirements and then what you can build and save beyond that. I think I didn't hear you saying that as of this resolution, this is definitely gone, that's definitely gone, etc. There's going to be a time to look at it, build, and we'll see how it works out. You do the best you can to provide for the education of the kids. Did I hear that right? Is that what you said?
I mean, we were offering.
You offer as much as you can for the amount you have.
Offering a rigorous offerings that our Absolutely.
But the reason I make that point is, I was at a school board meeting a number of months ago. It was the first meeting, maybe not the first meeting, but it was a meeting at which the Urban Mayors Committee presented their proposal to the board, and a specific resolution was presented to the board to provide a formula for pay to participate, and the board voted no. They would not accept that specific proposal. No sooner was that vote announced that probably 2/3 of the people in the room cleared out. By the time I got home, an hour or so later, our house had gotten 3 or 4 phone calls from people that weren't even at the meeting who said, "Did you hear they cut athletics?" No, that's not what happened. What happened was the board said, "We won't accept this particular proposal. Go back to the drawing board, bring us something else." And I guess that's my comment for tonight. I mean, if people leave this meeting and say, "Oh, the commission just gutted our schools, things are terrible, pack your bags, find some place to go," this runoff of open enrollments that people are talking about is going to accelerate. We've got a difficult situation, there's going to have to be some cuts, there's going to have to be some changes, but it doesn't mean that we still can't have an excellent school system. And you all laugh, and that's fine. It just shows me where your commitment is. Do you give up, wave the flag of surrender, or do you try? Or do you try?
Any other comments? Next meeting will be here January 20th, 4 o'clock. 2 hours. Do I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
And Mr. Wheeler, you seconded, thank you very much, guys. Mr. Wheeler? Councilman? Mr. Hurley?
Yes.